All right, getting everything set up to tweet out, and we will start the show soon. We'll start with the replays, but I'll just wait for a couple people to join. I know it's still early, maybe a little bit too early, to be honest, because the sun. I have to do something about the lighting. Is basically what this comes down to. I can't just get away with not doing it. But yeah, the sun has been very impactful this morning. So if it looks terrible, that's just the way it goes. We're dealing with the information anyways. I guess I could turn off the webcam. My eye is kind of flaring up, kind of a bit of a mess. I accidentally turned off my computer this morning, right before I went to take my dog outside. And then, Folky, thank you for the follow. So then that shut everything down, and then I had to reset. It was different settings. I screwed up Twitch. I had to fix all that. And then I'm very things have to be in a particular way, and it was slightly off, and then it felt like everything was off. So getting that all set, I'm not even gonna stream. I can't get this right. And anyways, I'm still kind of working through it, but we'll get the stream going. Thank you guys. We got 8 viewers, so I'll stop talking about myself and do this, do the fun stuff. We'll go over the 3 stakes races from yesterday. We did the Withers live and the Sam F. Davis live at Tampa. I haven't watched those races since. Was kind of half watching them when they were running. And then by the time I logged off the stream, I watched San Vicente, and so we'll start with that because I was able to kind of watch that yesterday and then review it, and so we can kind of talk through that race. I have the plot pulled up right now, which again I've talked about this before. Let's get the right race. First things first. Talked about that before. Once the races become official, so this is going back to yesterday. The results are input into the plot so that you can kind of review where the horses came from. We use the sort of the Olympic style way of going where it's gold, silver, bronze. So the number 6 Concert Tour, number 1 Freedom Fighter second, and number 2 Trojan Braun, which you're looking at the plot kind of going into the race. I don't think this result is any bit of a surprise to anybody. The 5 and 4 just looked a little bit below by all accounts. Concert Tour looked as best as he could, the kind of the best horse in this field, which honestly isn't saying much, but we'll review the race and get some feedback if you're on chat to talk through this race, and then we'll go through the Withers. Because they're up on YouTube, we can actually watch them live. So, or not live, but you know what I'm saying. We can review the video in this case. So let's see how that works. Let's see if I can bring this out to full screen. That looks better. So one of the things, and I think this is just the way it goes. One of the other things I was struggling with is everything seems really slow now. And I can kind of see on the stream it's delayed. So whatever. But try to remove this purple border, and I don't know if I can, but whatever. That's just something I'm gonna have to deal with in the meanwhile. It's just gonna have to annoy me, and I'm gonna have to forget about it. But here is the San Vicente Stakes. I'll kind of talk through it and then go from there. Hopefully it's not too glitchy. It's kind of annoying. But Freedom Fighter kind of pushed out from the inside. Stablemate to eventual winner Concert Tour, who's kind of sitting, trying to rate, sitting right off him as he kind of makes that lead. It's kind of a cagey ride on Freedom Fighter, where he's keeping Freedom Fighter off the rail, and that's by design a little bit. One, it gives the horse a little bit of space on the front end, but also knowing that the Chosen Braun, another type of pace setter, he's kind of baiting him on the inside. You can kind of see right here. It's oh, I'm gonna open the rail. Go ahead, come on through, and then kind of gets him in a little bit tight and re-engages. So it's a little bit of jockeys being jockeys, right? Kind of intimidating that main rival. Meanwhile, Concert Tour is just kind of tracking outside, waiting for the time to make his move. Chosen Braun, you can see he kind of gets that little bit intimidated inside. He's kind of turning his head, he's kind of leaning out a little bit. They switched to the outside with the Chosen Braun. At this point, Freedom Fighter's doing his thing on the front end. Pace hasn't been that crazy, all things considered. Concert Tour is just kind of under a drive, working to kind of get up, eventually does. Chosen Braun kind of starts to run on late, still kind of leaning out a little bit, but I think, getting out. It's only a second start. Some practice, 5 and 4 just were kind of never involved. 5 ended up breaking slow, the 4 chased wide, and then before he kind of started to lose ground. Just not good horse, but just not quite on this level. So again, kind of goes back to the plot. Looks, kind of like the way it ran. I'll pull up the grid because I did do the notes for this earlier. We can kind of see, look at the optics figures, those notes that are in already. So Freedom Fighter, he was a little washy, which, for barefoot runners, that can be kind of hit or miss. Hard lead, again, I guess was talking through the video, pushed out from the front, and then Flow was the soft pace, which I'll show you in a second. Chosen Braun, actually, let's just do it all at once. I'll put them in order. So you can see the 04S was S, meaning slow, and then they came home super slow too. So, I mean, just from that perspective alone, it's just not a strong race, which, helped Freedom Fighter to stay on. I don't think much of Freedom Fighter. Even going into the race, I wrote up on Briz, and I think I even included this on the optics analysis, where Freedom Fighter's works, on paper, just looked really fast, all bullets, all that stuff. And then when you watched him work, it was just the visuals just didn't match. I mean, which was kind of like how he ran here, right? He's holding on, he's given that, but just visually, it's he just looks like he's going to quit at any point, and there's just nothing overly exciting on that front. I mean, Concert Tour had a perfect trip. By design, it was sitting right off a stablemate, waited to make the move, and finished under a drive. I mean, tracking a slow pace and coming home slow is not great, and just visually, it's not like he showed anything. It didn't show much in that race. Chosen Braun, I think green is appropriate. He's just lightly raced at this point. It wasn't a bad effort for him. The 5 needs softer, needs calibrated company. Same thing with the 4. But what I will do is look at Frosty. You're being extra needy. Is look at Concert Tour just to kind of compare. His 2 races. Let's put these in order. There we go. So he just, ran basically the same race as he did when he broke his maiden first out. In terms of, kind of optics figures, race shapes, all that stuff. Extended comment here, he's a step slow, moved up early to push pace, took over from the long shot pace setter. That long shot pace setter ended up coming back on, when was that? Friday. That sense maker. And again, I noted this looked like a maiden claiming type horse. He won at maiden claiming, it was 11-1, drew in off the AE. So he beat a maiden claiming horse in order to get that win. It's tough to pull up after the wire. Just, I think that was more of a case. Did they end up doing blinkers off? I didn't even notice. I think the blinkers were on, no? I already closed the... I noted, anyways, yeah, blinkers are on. That's weird that it's just, there's an error there. Okay. Sorry. I don't know why there's not the B here. I think it may be because the computer took them off Lasix and then it removed blinkers too. But anyways, he was on blinkers. He had blinkers on. That race, sorry. Got distracted. Yeah, so it's kind of tough to pull up after the wire, and he was wearing a very shallow cut blinkers. That's what distracted me. And so in the Derby video, like the Derby Futures video, when I was talking about these horses, like what was going on going forward. Wouldn't be surprised if they ended up removing the blinkers because it was such a shallow cup. But he did have them on, and kind of the same thing. Had like, it's almost like a hood where like the blinkers are non-existent. But I mean, at this point, I mentioned this before, Baffert horses, they pretty much show who they are early on in terms of like their speed figures. They're either slow, they're either fast, or they're very fast. Like, that's pretty much like the three designations. And then from there, it's just a matter of how they maintain. Because they don't necessarily, you don't really see, like with a lot of trainers, you start seeing a horse improve with racing, right? Baffert horses, like, they fire right out of the blocks, the good ones, right? And then from there, it's like they just kind of either they stay fast or they tail off. So that's, what we're kind of seeing here is, I just don't know where the improvement is. Even if he kind of stays the same, it almost seems like the rest of the competition, even his barn mates, might catch up. I mean, Freedom Fighter, I recognize he moved forward, but again, I mean, that was the second start. He was coming off a layoff. So, I mean, in terms of progression, it did occur, but it's not a huge leap, especially given that pace scenario, to really see another move forward with him. So, I don't know, not a whole lot out of that race that has me overly excited. I mean, coming out of that race, you probably want Concert Tour the most, and then it's just going to depend on who he's going to face. If he faces another field like this, where it's just, the rest of the field is soft, maybe. But if he gets tested, could be tough going forward. So, in terms of chat, do you guys have any questions on that race or want to discuss anything? Otherwise, I can kind of go forward, look at another race. It's kind of a small field. I don't think there was a lot to touch on in there. So yeah. So in terms of like the Withers and the Sam Davis, my analysis might be a little bit all over the place because I'm literally like watching this race for the second time, like right now. And it's almost like I'm watching the race for the first time because while I was on the stream, I had like other tracks running and I was like halfway distracted, like just kind of watching it out of the peripheral. So it's like I know who won. I know, kind of a little bit how this race went down, but overall, in terms of doing analysis for the race, it's going to kind of be like the first time. So, all right. So no questions in terms of the San Vicente. We will move on here. And again, as you guys know, I watch the replays with the sound off. I don't want to be distracted. Fast forwarded it already just so that we're missing the post parade and then walking up to the start. What I do, let me back it up a little bit. So one thing we do know here is that the number 3, pause this real quick, close that real quick, pull up this grid real quick. Known agenda, I guess you can kind of see it here. I won't go any further. But when I was talking about this race, I obviously you look at the plot where he is, looks solid. Speed figures look solid. Ran a B last time out at the Remsen, grade 2. So, certainly looks coming into this race like the horse to beat. Where I sort of made the case that maybe we should be a little bit suspect with this horse, was just in terms of intention, like trainer intention, right? Because it's a Todd Pletcher horse. He can run pretty much anywhere he wants. Why is this being dark when I scroll over it? That's annoying. All right. If anything, let's go here. He can run anywhere that he wants when he has a good horse, right? So kind of the first thing that jumped out at me was Known Agenda debuted at Belmont on September 27th, which means he could have possibly been able to run at Saratoga, but didn't for whatever reason, not quite. Maybe just needed that extra few weeks in terms of development, But just the fact that, like, they didn't try to get a start at Saratoga is kind of already, like, interesting, with a horse if he's that good. And then again, makes his second start, November 8th at Aqueduct, which is, fine, I guess. But typically, the good horses are going to go down to Gulfstream. He stays in New York, which again, maybe they just decide we're going to stay on this kind of path. It's a little bit softer for this horse. But again, that goes to like intention, right? If it's like a really good one, probably would have started at Saratoga, probably would have gone down to Florida. But they stay in New York. So even though the horse hasn't done anything wrong at this point, just from that just kind of like what's going on behind the scenes, there's maybe some reason to just be like, maybe this horse just, he's not the superstar from the barn. Probably talking a little bit too much here. But anyways, so that was just like one thing that just was like, let's be a little bit suspect, even though he makes sense. So the start of the race, he's the number 3. He ends up breaking a little bit slow, which, according to the plot, has enough speed to be forwardly placed, but he breaks a little bit slow. Video's going to be choppy, whatever. And he's kind of back in between horses, so not the most. You can kind of see her chasing him here. Behind in between horses, so not a great spot, especially for a horse that's been somewhat forwardly placed. What just happened? All right, we're back. So you can see right now, 7's got kind of the lone lead. 5, who I thought made a lot of sense in this spot, was kind of sneaky in here, is getting a perfect trip. Sitting in the pocket, saving ground, not a lot of stress on him. The eventual winner, the 9, also getting a great trip, sitting right outside the pace setter. We've got the 10 being wide, the 12 being wide. The 1 getting a little bit of traffic right now. It's kind of behind in between horses. It's not necessarily the 1. The 1 is starting to move up, but it's also, keep in mind, you've got the 5 going backwards, right? So it gives a little bit of illusion. So the 1 kind of gets a rail run here. 8's kind of being pushed along, kind of doing his best, kind of grinding. I know he kind of stays on for a piece. The 9 starts to take over. There, look at the back of the pack. You can start to see the 3 starting to come on a little bit. So between horses, he has to go wide. There's not a lot of change in running order at this point. The 9 kind of had that trip, is under a ride. Looks a little bit turfy if you ask me. The 8 is grinding along. The 7 was the pace setter. He's fading. The 1 gets off the inside and starts to close, is on that left lead. And same thing with the 3, who's kind of coming along late. So again, I think the 3, interesting, the breakdown of pleasure horse, yeah. Again, it's just, a little bit more theory than anything, but so in terms of the result, again, I'm not overly excited about kind of like anything out of this race. The 9 was heavily bet down. We were like on chat and everyone's like, the quote unquote, like they knew, like, yeah, definitely. It was bet down, kind of, ran to it, got a good trip. The 3, not a great trip and showed run. The 1, not a great trip and showed run. The 7 and 8, I think they did their best. I don't know if there's much upside for those horses going forward. I think, as far as the 7, did what he could on the front end today, held on for a share. The 8 was just kind of like, in that spot and grinding, kind of had every chance to kind of progress, didn't really. And then there's really not much from everybody else. I know the 10, the 12 were both wide. The 5, like I said, no excuse there. The other Pletcher, I don't even remember that horse in the race, so that's not a good sign. Let's find him. Sometimes these horses, like I've like noticed when I do notes and I'm like writing all of the notes, and then all of a sudden I was like, the 7? Where was the 7? I have like nothing on the 7. And it's just like the performance was like so unremarkable. Like I'll go back and watch it and I'm like, no wonder I've just like ignored this horse and he just didn't do anything. So sometimes I miss stuff, right? Sometimes I go back and I'm like, whoa, totally, missed that horse completely. Other times it's like didn't do anything. Does break a little bit slow with the stablemate at that time. It's kind of getting a little bit more held up. You can kind of see the head on here. The 3 has a little bit of contact whereas the 4 is just kind of resenting maybe a little bit of kickback in that spot. Again, there's a little bit of traffic, like whoever that is right there, the 11, I'm thinking. But like overall, again, you don't want to get too, you don't want to create trips, right? So like, even though it's like, it's not comfortable, put it all in perspective. Like, was it enough that it impacted the performance, or did it happen? Wasn't great, but even with a clean trip, I don't think the horse would have performed well in this spot. So you can kind of see the 11 had that traffic, but I think he kind of starts to fade. The 4 just is wide. I think from that slow start and getting pushed back, he's just kind of wide throughout, which isn't ideal, but also not necessarily excuse worthy. It's hard to tell. This video's not great. I probably should go back when it's a more high def read. But yeah, that was the 4. I just wanted to look at him because I lost him. Pause it. Tampa. And then let's look at the grid. Any chat, if you're there and there's anything that's coming up on this race, or what happened to that horse, what do you think about this? Whatever you want. Jump in the chat. So yeah, we'll look at the 5, because unlike the 3, where I was kind of like picking apart intent, I kind of thought there was positive intent behind the 5. I know Dale Romans likes to give horses, even his good horses, the first start at Ellis, because he likes them to find softer company, which was encouraging, because then he improved. He improved in his second start, breaking his maiden at Keeneland, and then improved again in a grade 2. So, I liked that progression. I liked the pattern. It looked like there was some positive intent going race to race, things going where they're supposed to go. And then coming back off the layoff, picking kind of the right spot to bring him back in. This kind of seemed like the right spot. He had speed figures that certainly were on the high side. That 89, which was a juvenile number, was on the high side of the optics figure range. And I mean, there was no excuse. No excuse. So will be interesting to see what happens out of that race for him. In terms of the 9, 9, I mean, good progression there. Improved in his second start, and then just kind of paired up. Has had kind of perfect trips each time, which, as I kind of noted visually, where I was like, he kind of looks like a turf horse. I think probably having those perfect trips is going to be the key to this horse, because if he's drawn inside, gets stuck behind horses, has to take kickback, a little suspect on how he's going to handle that. But kind of sitting close to moderate paces and being clear of horses, then he'll be able to run his race. There's that. Look at the 3. Again, not a bad effort for him, considering the trip, right? That he had to run from this far back. He's usually up close to the pace. So some good education out of that race. Could see a move forward. Still overall a little bit of suspect on quality for the reasons that was mentioned. Look at the 1. I mean, the one is improving. It's just so subtle. Which is probably a class thing. But again, positive, and was no lead again here. So that's just something to keep in mind with what makes a horse look like a turf horse. It can be it's not a one size fits all thing. It could just be the way they carry themselves, some high head carriage, certain patterns with the way they travel, they look physically, the way they handle kickback, could be a thing. So again, it's not a one size fits all type situation. And obviously, I'm not saying the 9 is necessarily a turf horse because he's obviously run well on dirt, but those kind of characteristics that also just kind of seem to help, like I said, with that perfect trip. So in terms of hidden stash, um, him needing to kind of get those lead changes sorted out, and also needs to just continue to move forward, which so far he's done, but might just be a little bit too much. Who else was in there? The 8 and the 7, kind of the same thing. Same thing with the 8. It's kind of grinding, grinding forward. This might not be on this level. Is kind of the deal, but a good trying type. The 7, can't knock. I think they did the right tactic. Put the horse in the race, gave him the best chance. We'll look at that other 4. Yeah, he's pretty cheap. Pretty cheap. I think people had some interest in the 10, who was wide. Outside of the ground loss, I think it just could be a class thing. I don't know. Was there anybody else? Okay, got it. You're welcome. Anybody else in that field you guys want to take a look at, or should we go to Aqueduct? Close these. Go to Aqueduct. Aqueduct it is. I'll keep that open in case somebody wants to look at something. But we'll go to Aqueduct. See how that looks on the stream. Looks good enough. All right, so kind of the same thing. Let's look at the plot real quick. Again, just watching this race live, kind of halfway. So this will be sort of the real pass through. Watching this race, I think I was paying a little bit more attention to the withers at the time of the race because there wasn't a whole lot going on at that time. Nine being a little bit stubborn going in there. Again, that's one of those things that you want to know.
They're in the gate.
Let's do this. If it's something they do all the time, that's just who they are. If it's something that impacts performance, it's like a one-off, then you want to make note. You want to make note of it. So again, kind of this race, watching live, thought it was smart, with the 3, he's been able to show speed, has good tactical speed, not trying to get too cute here. Let him run his race. And so they go forward. Cool, getting spammed. Anyways, gets pressed by a long shot. The 4 kind of quickly backs out. The 5, who ends up winning the race, you can kind of see is sitting in mid-pack and just has a lot of horse. It's not the most comfortable trip, kind of behind and between horses, kind of tight on heels. So it has to show a little bit of class, just being like professional in that spot. Starts to move up as the 4 moves back. Starts to push along. 9 starts to go. The gate horse, the 7, is just fading without excuse. Keeping an eye on those horses in the back. There's one in the Rapoli Silks that's kind of starting to move a little bit, but under a drive. Same thing with the 2 on the inside. The 1 and the 2 were both those Laurel horses who made sense, but then both Aaron and I, who was on the stream, was like, the Laurel horses just don't show up anywhere outside of Laurel, which is so true, so true. So the 2 puts in a little bit of a good run. The 1 was inside, chasing close to the pace. He faded. And the 6, that was that other, when I was like, the Rapoli Silks are starting to make a move. So that horse came from off the pace. Pretty good effort there. The 3 ran his race on the front end. The concern with the 3 was distance. So I think that could be, doesn't break all that well either. Then we kind of liked, as a long shot, maybe you can get a share underneath, was that 8 horse. Was a little bit concerned in terms of class with him, but kind of a good effort. Good effort to kind of stay on. Right, you see the 8 is wide, the 6 making that move. It's kind of why I wanted to take it back a little bit, because sometimes we can get caught up watching races, just watching the horses in the front and those horses in the back. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they just appeared in the stretch. But they were working their way there. That 2 kind of moving up on the inside. So pretty good effort for the 2, considering he ran a good race with Laurel for him, which is not easy to do. So risk taking as the favorite, I thought that was it. I thought that was a good effort. Maybe of all the horses that ran, maybe that's the one that's got some upside worth a follow. And typically, I think these races in New York kind of get a little ignored. All right, let's shut this down because these videos are just being so not great. Again, we can look at the results on the plot. The 5 winning the race looks pretty logical there. 3 finishing 3rd, and then the 6, the silver medal. Kind of good effort there, circling quad 4 to show some run. So look at the winner. Yeah, I mean, I thought that was it. I thought that was, even though it's the same right now, he paired up a 94. I'm okay with that because it wasn't a perfect trip. So even though it's the same figure, he had to show a little bit more there, not just have the race handed to him. I mean, did have, was a little bit ideal in terms of like being, getting kind of first run, right place, right time, that type of thing. But dealing with traffic is still a lightly raced horse. It was good. I thought that was an improved effort. In terms of the 6, a big improved effort with this horse. I mean, certainly like the best race he's ever run. But yeah, being a deep closer is going to be problematic. And it doesn't seem like there's, unlike the 3, the other Pletcher horse, the 3 at Tampa, who's like that horse, isn't a deep closer. He can be a little bit closer to the pace. That was just kind of, situational. This guy is a deep closer, and there's no changing that. In terms of the 3, yeah, I mean, for him, distance. Good horse, but I think that's going to be problematic going forward. Who else? 2. That was one that kind of moved up inside. The 1 faded. 3 we did. The 4 was like the sprinter. 5, 6. 7 was another one that just like total no keep, no excuse. It's kind of outside horses close to the pace and just no excuse to drop back. I don't know. Even if he was like a need the lead here, still should have shown a little bit more in that race. But and then the 8 are long shot. Long shot bomb. almost got there. And then the 9. The 9 was wide. I think the 9 was the other one that was like a sprinter. A little concerned on that front. So yeah, not a lot, but some good information. Sometimes it's like that, not a lot of horses to follow, at least for those stakes races. It's a good day overall. We caught some prices in some of the other races, that was for sure. The pick 6 was really disappointing for me. That second leg is where I got knocked out. This race here. Where the 2 just got it set up in the so I ended up using the 6 and the 3. The 6 was a big favorite. He just was like so rank on the front end, set like a ridiculously fast pace. And the 3 I ended up using because I was like, oh, there's not a lot of pace in this race. I think the 3 will be forwardly placed. And even though I'm not a big fan of this horse, like maybe just has the pace advantage. He broke slow and ended up running late. And the 2 just got a total setup, was able to save ground. And then, the 6 just naturally getting tired late. So that was the leg that knocked me out. So it kind of a little sting, but that's the way it goes. A pretty good sequence outside of that. Anything else? Otherwise, I'll shut this down for the day. I'm not streaming later today. I've got to do notes and catch up on regular work. And I know some people are watching other sports today too, so I guess that all works out. So last chance for questions, and then I'm going to end the stream. And if you haven't already, if you're kind of lurking, make sure to hit that follow. What do you think of Oaklawn race 8 yesterday? A good race by Boulder. Let's take a look at it. Watching the races at Oaklawn yesterday with the track being off, I think it played a role in the results. I thought it was a good race by Boulder. I'm not going to knock him. But Steve Asmussen had a couple, they're both 5s. They both had the same kind of outside tracking trip that ended up winning. So I think there was somewhat of a profile in play. But he's a good horse. Back to back. I thought Flagstaff ran really well. I gave them both Bs. Even though Flagstaff finished 4th. I thought that was a really good effort. Because Sadler's been so cold. And I thought that was a really good run. But yeah, Boulder got a great ride. The right trip. The two ran a good race. He's just not quite on the level. Mr. Jägermeister, same thing, just a little bit soft. Strike Power, I wasn't thrilled with that trip, but I don't know if this horse is just that good. I just think he needed the lead. He broke on top. He gave up the lead, and that was that. Plus, he was in the inside, and I don't know if the inside was necessarily where you wanted to be, but, whatever. So I'm not trying to make too much out of it because of the way the racetrack played and the way those race results were. What do you like about Bezos? At the end of his works, his stride seems to be shortening a lot. Maybe that's just because he's not being asked. I haven't noticed that visual in his works. Is there one work in particular that you've kind of noticed that in? Because I haven't picked that up. In fact, I have talked about his works on here before. Let me pull it up real quick just so I have the. We won't watch them because I don't have permission to do that, but because I've watched them, I can discuss them off kind of memory a little bit. But I think kind of the most important thing to kind of keep in mind, for example, he's worked solo. He worked with Spielberg quite a bit. The one against Speed Pass. Let me watch that one real quick. So Speed Pass, as you know, maybe we don't know, but is a 4-year-old. Is a 4-year-old horse. So keep that in mind that he's working, and Baffert does this quite a bit. So this is out of the gate, where Speed Pass actually breaks on top. Bezos is sitting outside, and they just kind of let him gallop. Speed Pass on the inside, Bezos under a hold. I'm not sure if this is by design. We'll kind of see how this race kind of plays out a little bit. But Baffert does this with his older horses. He also worked with that filly who's actually running. What's she running today? Quality Response, I think. So in this drill going around the turn, they kind of catch up with the Dan Blacker pair. Speed Pass stays on the inside. Bezos has to go wide. Again, he's not being asked for much, and I think that is by design. So again, the Dan Blacker pair kind of gets clear. Got some dirt in his face there. I'm watching After the Wire. I don't see him shortening strides. I don't think that he finished that drill like poorly. What just the fact that like you'd want to see, like you were kind of expecting to see a little bit more like past the wire, but I thought that was fine. I mean, sometimes too, with these drills, that was January 21st, so he must have worked after that for sure. Um, Sometimes they'll we're gonna work 5 furlongs, which is like the official, which what was his time, like 59 something, 59.4. But Baffert will communicate more with the exercise rider, like we're gonna do a half mile, half mile blowout. So even though it's like that's more of what they're looking for and not asking for the full 5. But there was nothing to kind of knock in that drill. And I think kind of the most important takeaway from that is the fact of Baffert pairing him with the older horse. An older horse who's, he's coming back from a layoff. When did he run? A few days ago. Coming back off the layoff, but did have some stakes in him. And Baffert's done that before. He's done that with these, younger horses that he thinks has some ability. Puts them with an older horse who's not quite that great, but at least, is a horse that probably let's say Speed Pass, like, quote unquote, won the drill, you'd be like, that's okay because Speed Pass is an older horse and that makes sense, that type of thing. So there's reason for Bezos to kind of, quote unquote, lose that drill. And he looked better. And he looked better against Quality Response, who again is a 4-year-old filly, or maybe she's a 5-year-old mare. Anyway, she's older. I think she runs today. And then is worked with Spielberg, who's in his class, a couple times. So yeah, I mean, I like what I've seen. I like what I've seen from Bezos so far. How that translates in the afternoon, we will see. But the kind of pattern, the style, the way that Baffert goes through, you put a stock into Bezos on the inside versus Spielberg. Which drill? Must be the second, the one on the second. Let's take a look. I think it's more of just practice in general. I don't think it was we'll put we think Spielberg's better, because those two have worked together in the past. Just doing something a little bit different. Let's watch this drill. Either solo or on the outside. Yeah, typically. To bet against, trying to find a reason to bet against today. Yeah, I mean, he's just not even asking him. He's on the inside. Yeah, I mean, he looks like a runner. He's super well met in this spot. I mean, they've been waiting for this spot. It's not, the field is the field's okay. Let me pull up that race. Mr. Impossible, who was gonna run in the stakes race. He's okay. And then law professor's in there, who's really interesting to me. He might need this start, but I mean, could be the one horse that gives a challenge. We'll see. He was working in New York over the summer, so kind of looking towards, Saratoga perhaps. They also entered him early to run in the Smarty Jones at Oaklawn. So at least from that standpoint, there's some positive intent. He looks good in the morning. Has some run. He's progressed. The January 31st drill I thought was good. But they just, they might want more ground, might want to start, that type of thing. I mean, that's pretty much the only way to go. It could just be, if Bezos gets beat, American Pharoah got beat first out, you never know how they translate in the afternoon, but there's nothing I can really knock on him at this point, I guess is what I'm getting at. Hard to make that case. All right. Anything else? Anything else for today? Oh, any of these horses? Yeah, good stuff. Thanks for your input. You're welcome. I appreciate your input as well, actually, because it makes me go back and look at these drills and think about them more critically. And I think that's important. And one of the cool utilities of having this is sometimes somebody will say something and it's just oh, I didn't think of that, or let me look at that again, or look at it from a different perspective. And I try to do that. That's sort of one of my intentions when I'm doing race analysis or having to do selections at Brisnet, is just to get people thinking in a way of looking at this horse. Maybe it was a horse that I didn't like, and this person likes them for X and Y reasons, and then you go, okay, I see what they're saying, but I reject that, right? So when I listen to other people's information, that's what I try to do, is not just automatically be oh, they like that, whatever. It's what's their reasoning behind it, and then accept or reject that. Maybe it's something I missed, or maybe it's, oh, people are liking this horse for that reason. Well, cool, because I don't like this horse for that particular reason. And if people are gravitating to that horse for that reason, that might be an opportunity to play again. So yeah, so I appreciate your input and everybody on the chat as well. So it's really good. It's a good community and good environment. So with that, we got 5 more. If you haven't already, make sure follow. It's much appreciated. And then for now, the plan is to live stream on Thursday. Friday, Saturday. Next week, no Sunday, because we'll do the Sunday show on Monday and stream live on Monday for the holiday Monday. So that's kind of the plan as of now. All right. Anything else? Last chance. All right, you guys have a good weekend. Good luck on all your plays, and we'll talk on Thursday.